And as alluded to before, happening in spiritual Egypt now, which is our modern day captivity in America, and in another sense, all the corners of earth where we are scattered. That's all scriptural, all prophecy. It would be scattered to the ends of the earth, and we would lose our identity and our heritage, but that we'd be called back to it before the great and dreadful day. Second Esdras 15 and 11. But I will bring them with a mighty hand and a stretched out arm, and smite Egypt with plagues as before, and will destroy all the land thereof. This was a prophecy that was after our captivity in Egypt. And so when it says it will smite Egypt as before, it's the spiritual Egypt that we read of in Revelation 11 and 8, which is right here. Revelation 18 and 4. A few chapters later. And the third angel poured out his vial upon the rivers and fountains of waters, and they became blood. Yuck. Now, I haven't been to any of these rivers in person, but I can tell you it is quite disgusting. Remember what it says in Exodus 7 and 21, and the fish that was in the river and the fish that were in the river died, and the river stank, and the Egyptians could not drink of the water of the river, and there was blood throughout all the land of Egypt. Well, here's an article, and this wouldn't surprise me if this is the case in the others. This is from Strange Sounds. The title of it is Feel Bad? Question mark. Now look at this fisherman sailing through a river of dead fish. Yuck. A mystery is currently baffling residents and officials in Paraguay. Look. This fisherman is literally sailing on a river, Monte Lindo River, of dead fish. What a shock. Look at the thousands of dead fish floating on the surface of the river in Paraguay, just 8 kilometers away from the mouth of the Paraguay River. Well, it would be interesting to see what is the cause of this mass fish die-off. But, these were the things, maybe even just 100 years ago, massive environmental disasters, massive death of animals, which, by the way, you see today, right? All the birds dying, falling dead in parks all around these cities, probably from getting fried by 5G, but who knows? These were the types of bad quote-unquote omens that people looked to that signified that very bad things were on their way. And if we apply that to what we're reading in the scriptures, you can actually do it in apply what you're reading to the scriptures to these events. They are bad omens because it's foretelling what times we're in and when these things were to begin happening. Like it says in Matthew chapter 24, I believe, this is the beginning of sorrow. So these events are telling us what time it is, and that much worse events are on their way. It's very common. You can find instances throughout history. Maybe I'll do a lesson on it at a later time, but it's very interesting. When you look at cities that were known for particularly depraved or wicked behavior, Sodom, of course, as we all know in the scriptures, any place that held Israelites in captivity, Egypt, Babylon, so on and so forth. But also in recent history, these places were typically, not in all cases, but many of these places were met with these cataclysmic, natural, quote unquote, and I say that in quotes because it's really the Most High's will, but these natural disasters destroying this place. One that comes to mind is, I think it was Pompeii, place that was covered by a volcano. That's burned into the conscious collective memory. But there are lesser known events like that happening to, again, these cities that were known for wickedness. I believe Port Royal in Jamaica. Was one. There we go. Pardon my spelling here. Let's see if it talks about the cataclysmic disaster. Right, it was this earthquake. It was this very intense earthquake that literally, I was reading accounts of it, saw people just sinking into the ground during what was happening. It was this account that I read. It was this sort of like it was such a descriptive and vivid, really animated, beautiful retelling of what was happening, but at the same time was so traumatic and horrific. But it really just evoked so many images in your mind of, people literally just sinking into the ground, becoming almost like it was quicksand, and people sinking into the ground during this earthquake and presumably dying, just going down to their grave. So these cataclysmic disasters coming about in these places, and rivers turning blood red all over the world. Well, that is no exception. Again, this is the final captivity we're in. It will be one of the greatest deliverances of all. I believe that's in the book of Joel, that after this deliverance, after the great destruction that happens, which will be the greatest of them all, that the Israelites and their power will no longer be known as the power that brought us out of Egypt, but the power that brought us out of the land of the north. In and amongst all of these disasters that were going on here. So, if you're interested, check out the article. It's really cool. I think when you start stringing a lot of these together, it really starts to sink in. The pattern of events that's happening here. If it's a one-off here and there, okay, yeah, maybe it's happening, maybe not. But then when you start seeing 15 of these in a row in 15 different countries under 15 different sets of circumstances, it really starts to hit home. So if you're interested in this content, you can check it all out at my website here at www.hebrewisraeliteresearchcenter.org. And if you want other content, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Shalom.